It's something the Spanish brought to Mexico. Is that if you were lighter, then you grow up in the social scale. And they got it for the religion. And the one I went to tell about, I had a study that they call limpieza de sangre, cleanness of your skin, because they conquered the Muslim people in Spain. Spain was conquered by Muslims, right? And then Spain took over. They call it la reconquista, and they expelled all the Muslim people. Pero millions of Muslim Arabs, or maybe from North Africa, stay in Spain. That's why Spain is a mixed country, very mixed country. So what they did, they asked these people, if you want to stay here in Spain, you have to become Catholic. And the Muslim people, and you people didn't agree at the beginning, but then they started agreeing. And the Spanish said, you know what? But you have to prove me that you're Catholic. And they give you papers, like here in green cards. They give you papers. Okay, you're Catholic now. But if you had a kid, your kid has to have that paper that you were Catholic. So every generation started losing the religion, the Muslim, and the Spanish believe that they were no Muslim but Catholics, right? That took years. So it's a process that they lose their religion, the Muslim people, and became Catholics by 1800. So the same tactic they use in Mexico, bearing blood. First, when the Spanish came mixed with an Indian, they call it mestizo, right? And I said before that one Spaniard have a kid, they became a criollo. But one mestizo with the black people, they became a mulato. Then a mulato con un mestizo, they became a lobo. And the Spanish start making paintings. I make a study. Those paintings are in Mexico City, by the way. They paint all mixed races.
They're just like creating races at this point up in their head as if we're freaking crossbreeding dogs. It sounds like
names like Salta para atrás, Tente el aire, crazy names. Coyote, Lobo, Mestizo, Guanaco. Some names stuck. Even the name Cholo come from the area. Cholo means a mestizo from Mexico, then in 1760 arrived in California, and in indigenous people from California, when they mix together, it's a Cholo. And the word stays up to today.
No way.
Yeah. So we call it la sociedad de castas.
That's not the version of Cholo I've seen in California.
They don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know. So these names, the Spanish has a society of castas. I mentioned Indians, blacks, Indian. Castas mean mixed people. All can. The Spanish get tired of naming them and say, okay, castas and white people, criollo or Spanish.
Yeah, it's a wonder, what people were thinking back then. It's just, well, it all centers around narcissism, obviously, and wanting to be the apex, the top of the food chain. But that's a lot of energy to put into recreating and renaming people, all based off of skin color.
But if you let me finish, because it's very important, I want you to think how the Mexican people think and why they don't change the mentality, because we're 300 years on imposing the aspirational society. Like you aspire to be better. And they say, if you are Indian, you can become white. So marry a white person, a whitest person, right? And they start cleaning their blood, like every time marrying a person with a fair skin. Up to my time when I was in Mexico City 30 years ago, it was the same thing. Cásate con una blanquita, marry a white girl, so you can better up the race. After 300 years, and still that mentality in Mexico, because that was imposed. And let me explain you in more detail. In Mexico, you try to be white. If you are Indian with 60% of Indian blood, but you are fair skin, you're white. The reverse is in here. You are an example. You are Mexico, they think you're American. You're white. They don't know. But here you decide to be Indian. You don't want to be whitish.
Well, yeah, actually, when I was younger, I was told by even teachers. I was told by teachers. I was told by just adults in my life that not to identify as Native, and not to. And on my documents, when I fill out what I am, put white and tell people I'm white. And when I go to job interviews and I'm applying for a job, tell them I'm white. Don't ever, they would always tell me to hide my nativeness.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I became an adult and I felt a connection to spirit and something deeper than
Mm-hmm.
this, because I wasn't connecting to white culture in the same way. And that's when I really started getting into my indigenous roots. And I started realizing that I shouldn't be ashamed of my indigenous culture. I should
Mm-hmm.
embrace it because I'm more indigenous than I am anything else. And I can feel my ancestors around me, and
Mm-hmm.
I can feel the river from my indigenous lands running through my veins. And so
Mm-hmm.
I need to embody that and learn about it. But so yeah, there is that racism that still goes on today in America, and even in my tribe, um, there's a lot of people who will go and try to wash out their blood
Mm-hmm.
because the natives from where I am are dark. They're not fair skinned, and
Mm-hmm.
so you'll see a lot of people will marry someone white and start trying to have whiter and whiter kids
Mm-hmm.
because um, the darker skin in America up until very recently, you're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna get
Mm-hmm.
pulled over by the cops. You're gonna probably go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of family members, that they have records because it doesn't matter what's going on. You can get pulled over just by
Mm-hmm.
driving down the street, and they're gonna find a reason.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna get the same job opportunities when your name is Horse
Mm-hmm.
versus if your name's John.
Yeah.
So. Uh, yeah, we're getting away from that. That's the point of this podcast is decolonization, and
Mm-hmm.
it's getting people to embrace their indigeneity and not feel like they need to hide it. And it's at least we know that we're together in this, South America and North America, Central America, where we all before we had to hide our indigenous
Mm-hmm.
roots, and now it's coming out, and we can stand together and
Mm.
embrace it.
But I see in the way I see it, I've been living in the United States 30 years ago. I can tell you a story because you mentioned it because you're living your society. But I see more freedom here to express yourself and say, I'm Indian, I'm Native American, and I feel proud of it. In Mexico, from my experience, is not the same thing. Is even that you're Indian, you don't want to be Indian, you want to be Mexican, which means white, or try to be as white as possible. Dyeing your hair, changing your clothes. And I see in my hand, for example, one of my first wife, she's Indian from Oaxaca. When she got to Mexico City, 10 years old, she spoke only Zapotec, and she learned Spanish in Mexico. And when I see it, then I married her when she was like 20. I didn't know her story that she told me. I am indigenous people, but I was afraid to speak my language.